A persuasive message, however well constructed, is likely to elicit different responses depending on the audience who receives it. You may have learned this basic principle very young when you discovered that your mom needed a good argument to be convinced, but your soft-hearted dad could be swayed by calling him daddy, giving him a big hug, and simply asking what you wanted. Another example, if you wanted to advocate for background checks prior to gun purchases, the messages you would use for members of the National Rifle Association, the NRA, would need to be very different than the message you use for people who don't own a gun. In this video, I will be talking about two related topics. First, I will introduce you to audience analysis. I will then show how the findings from an analysis of one's audience can be used to increase one's persuasiveness in face-to-face and media contexts. First, audience analysis can lead to greater persuasion through audience segmentation, a method that involves segmenting or dividing your audience into smaller, more homogeneous audiences, and then designing different messages for each audience. With segmentation, we will create different messages for different audiences. A second use of audience analysis findings is message tailoring. Here we will seek to tailor a different message for each person based on what we know about that individual. The purpose of audience analysis is straightforward: to know your audience. We wish to learn as much as we can about those factors that will shape the audience members' responses to our message. We shall define audience analysis as the process of gathering information about audience members through research and informal means and interpreting that information. How do we do this? If we have the resources and time, we survey a sample of individuals who are similar to the people we seek to influence. This involves developing a questionnaire that will give us information we need and administering that question by phone, mail, face-to-face interview, or the internet. Another approach is the focus group, where we bring together a group of, say, 7 to 10 people to discuss the topic on which we will be engaged in persuasion. These people need to be selected to represent the full diversity of the audience we seek to influence. We will probably ask open-ended questions to try to facilitate a discussion that will give us the insights into how these people think about the issue. If time is short or resources are limited, we can do more informal interviews with a few people from the target audience. Sometimes we find that there are existing data we can use to understand better the people we will be influencing. In most cases, we will want to obtain 3 kinds of information about the audience: its demographic makeup, its knowledge about the topic, and its initial disposition or orientation towards us and the topic. Let us deal with each of these in turn. The demographic information we need depends on the topic we are addressing, the idea we wish to sell, and so forth. Age is often valuable to know. We want to know about the average age of the audience as well as the age range. For example, do most members of the audience fall within a small range of ages, say 18 to 22, which is the case for a typical college campus? Or are you seeking to influence an audience that has many younger and older people? Women and men sometimes view issues differently. Gender could be a very useful thing to know in such situations. Race could be very important for some topic, but not at all important for other topics. Likewise, some issues are seen through the lens of a person's ethnicity and culture. Immigration policy might be an example of such a topic. The audience's preferred language and linguistic skills are important things to know as well. Our message needs to be in the preferred language of the people we seek to influence. We also need to speak at an appropriate level. Simpler words would be used for less educated people, for example. It is not difficult to think of topics and products for which social economic status matters. For example, if one wished to argue for capital gains tax reductions, an affluent audience will respond very differently than an audience living on more modest means. In most instances of persuasion, the audience members' religious affiliations are not likely to be relevant. However, we can easily think of topics where religious identity and beliefs could be critical, such as abortion or gay marriage. It is difficult to imagine how one could even begin to develop a persuasive message without some notion of how knowledgeable the audience is on the issue or how much they know about the idea being sold. What does the audience know? What doesn't it know? Is it even familiar with the matter at hand? What is the basis of its knowledge? Was your audience informed by sources and information that it trusts or distrusts? And the audience that has been informed by information sources of high credibility will be more difficult to persuade. Related to the basis of knowledge is whether or not the audience member's understanding came from direct experience with the issue you will be addressing, the politician for whom you are campaigning, the product you are marketing, and so forth. Direct experience is critically important. Direct experience leads to attitudes that are trusted by the people who hold them. It is more challenging to change these people's views when those views reflect direct experience. Our audience analysis will also tell us about the typical audience member's disposition toward us and the issue on which we seek to influence. We will approach an audience that is on our side differently than one who disagrees with us. In a dispositional analysis, we will want to know what the audience's expectations are for our message, their initial attitudes and beliefs, the interests or goals that they have that could influence their reaction to our persuasive attempt, and what motivates them. We will need to explore the biases and prejudging tendencies that they have that are related to the topic as well. We will also want to know what they think about the persuader, the sponsor behind the persuader, and spokespersons who might be used to represent the persuader. On the basis of our demographic, knowledge, and dispositional analysis, we will be in a position to adapt our persuasive strategy to our audience. There are at least two ways in which we could do so. I will now introduce you to these approaches called segmentation and tailoring. Audience segmentation is the process of dividing people into relatively homogeneous, by that I mean similar, subgroups. Our audience segmentation will give us the information we need to decide how to segment. If we find that groups have dramatically different dispositions towards us and our message depending on their age and gender, we might create segments of young, middle-aged, and older men, and young, middle-aged, and older women, 6 subgroups or segments in total. Each would receive a different message. We might learn that people with differing personalities approach the issue in varied ways. We would then consider creating groups based on our measures of psychological features. This is called psychographics. For example, anti-drug advertising campaigns have found it useful to direct different messages to people based on whether they tend to score high on a personality characteristic called sensation seeking. In a media campaign, we might segment based on media use. For example, we would look at the typical MTV viewer and come up with the best message for that kind of person. If we are involved in marketing or advertising, we would probably segment the audience based on whether or not they are using our product already. If they are using our product, then our persuasion goal is to reinforce current behaviors. If they are not using our product, we will seek to change their behaviors. When you seek to persuade your friends or family members, you do not use audience segmentation. You do something much more precise. You tailor your message to the knowledge, beliefs, and biases of that one person. This is called message tailoring. It is like having an audience segment of one. Message tailoring is typical in face-to-face persuasion involving one persuader and one target of persuasion. Even if we don't know that other person well, we can talk informally with him or her to learn what we need to know to tailor our persuasion in real time. When dealing with mass media audiences, such as audiences of a particular television program, radio show, or movie, tailoring is not possible. One message, such as a public service announcement or advertisement, will be seen and heard by all. This is also true for persuasive messages delivered through newspapers and magazines. Some direct mail marketers, however, have found it possible to tailor messages. By tapping into databases, they have developed software that generates a printed message tailored to what they have learned about us. Likewise, advances in communication technologies allow persuaders to collect information through surveys about us, then automate the development of a persuasive message based on the information we provided. This can be done on an interactive website or a computer kiosk at the local mall. Smartphone apps are also being developed that enable message tailoring. Some analysts believe that President Barack Obama won re-election in 2012 through message tailoring, what political scientists call micro-targeting. The Obama team brought together information technologists and behavioral scientists. They bought information from a wide range of sources about each of us and put together a voter profile that described our households and, in some instances, each potential voter in the household. They knew if we were registered to vote, our demographics, the magazines we read, the charities to which we give, and so much more. This allowed them to send informed campaign supporters to our door with messages likely to resonate with us. It also allowed them to send different materials to us through the mail than to our neighbors. For example, did you donate money to the Sierra Club? If so, you might have been sent information on Obama's views on global warming. Your neighbor might have been sent something completely different that reflected her concerns. As you may have already discovered, the advertisements presented to you when you are online often reflect your past searches, the things you post on Facebook and other media sites, and even the things you write about in your private mails. This is tailoring. In the future, cable companies will be able to send different advertisements to different households based on what they know about us. The television program and movies we watch gives them a wealth of information about us. In this video, we have learned that persuaders will be more effective if they analyze their audience carefully and then target messages to different audience segments or tailor messages to specific individuals.